Hi everyone, welcome to the first SAP Datasphere release summary of 2024. In this summary, we'll cover the newest features of the last 3 months. But before we dive into them, let's me introduce myself. I am Luna Hasselt and I work at Flexo in the analytics team as a BI expert, so also as a SAP Datasphere expert. What will we cover today? We will cover new releases, and we have categorized them in the following topics: data cataloging, data integration, releases with relation to data modeling, and finally, data preparation. But before we start, we have some important changes and deletions that are taking place in the system. And first of all, there is the deprecation of the connection type Microsoft Azure Generation 1, which means that this connection type is being removed and that you no longer have access to your data. Now, of course, if you want to reinstall that access to your data, you can remake that connection with connection type 2. And of course, be aware that you might need to adapt some models or processes related to that new connection then. Another update is that now users can give authorized consent if they want to schedule a new task in the data integration monitor. So users will receive a prompt saying that they need to reauthorize or re-give their consent. And moreover, what is also important that the feature does not apply to existing schedules that were scheduled before the release was implemented on this system. So in the picture on the right, you see that the consent is valid for a period of 4 weeks. Lastly, right now, you can dedicate one space to monitoring information. So this is to better govern, of course, your access to information, and it allows you in the data builder to also access monitoring views. And this is then not only for one space, but for all the spaces in your tenant. So now that we have discussed the important changes, let's move on to the data cataloging features. First of all, we have the monitoring page improvement, and this is an improvement to have an overview of your connections and your systems. The improvement supports 3 new tasks, namely that you can now connect to over 3 tenants of SAP Analytics Cloud. Moreover, in the feature allows you to see your information with relation to your system types and the statuses in one table, so it's very clear. And you can also extract your summaries for your analytic objects, but also for extraction logs, for example, when something failed. Now, data integration, another topic here. And first we will focus on the replication flows. So first, local tables can now be used as a source in your replication flow. Of course, that means that your source connection is a connection that needs to refer to your own Datasphere tenant. The prerequisites for your local table here is that your table must be deployed, that it is not enabled for delta capturing, and that you have a primary key in your table. So again, it's for initial loads and not for delta loads. Next, in the replication flow, 3 new targets are added for Amazon. So a simple storage service connection to a Amazon storage, Google Cloud Storage connection, and also Google BigQuery. And then we have the Microsoft Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 2 as well here. Then later also Kafka was added as a target for replication flow. And also be aware that if you use a non-SAP target in your replication flow, your admin needs to assign capacity units to the premium outbound integration. Another feature that was added to the replication flow is that you can now suppress duplicate records. So you can prevent duplicate records being loaded into your target system. And this was new to the default behavior that indeed your rows would be written twice. And the supported storage providers here are your SAP Cloud Data Lake, also your Amazon, your Google, and your Microsoft target systems. That brings us to the transformation flows, which is another type of flow in SAP Datasphere. And here an important feature was added, as you can now add a watermark to track transferred data. So it is for delta loads that are being loaded into a target table. So during the run, your watermark is being transferred. So your watermark, a timestamp, is being transferred. After your run has completed, the system will automatically set the watermark to the start of the run. And when you have an open transaction, for example, in the source table, at the time that your flow is running, then the earliest timestamp of your transactions is used as the watermark. In your data integration monitor, under Delta Capture settings, you will be able to see your watermark or your timestamp that was added, and you will also see the amount of records that have been transferred. Now, users are also able to reset a watermark, and in that case, the next time you run a flow, all data will be written again. So for your same load type, which would be initial and delta. So this doesn't mean that you would need to redeploy your transformation flow with the initial load option, for example. Now for this feature, we have prepared a video. So let's dive into it. Here we have created a transformation flow. And in our transformation flow, our source table is Delta Capture enabled, as you can see here. Also, our target flow will be Delta Capture enabled, as you can see here. Now we will deploy our flow. And when our flow has been deployed, we can run the flow. And now we can go to our data integration monitor. So here we can see the details of our run. And if we go to the Delta Capture settings, then we will see that our watermark is added, as you can see here. So this was our demo. Another feature added to the transformation flow is that you can now use a SQL view to transform or combine data. So you can not only use the graphical editor to combine data, but now also SQL. Then we have semantic onboarding. So as you might have noticed, there is a new application available in your Datasphere tenant, which is called semantic onboarding. So this is now your central entry point to import semantically rich objects. And these objects can come from SAP systems, the content network, the public data marketplace, or other marketplace context. So very important here as well is that now the content network is part of this application and it's no longer a separate application. Then another very useful, valuable, and important feature is the analytical model that is now consumable via an OData API. So analytical models or views that are exposed for consumption can now be consumed by an OData service. So then SAP Analytics Cloud, for example, or other tools can access this OData service. Another thing that is added as well is that you can consume views that have an input parameter via both the relational and analytical OData APIs. So you can set a value for that parameter, and then if you consume it, you can either comply with it or override it. Okay, we are with our third topic right now, business and data modeling. So for local tables, you can now find and replace data more easily or on a larger scale in your data editor. So if you click on your column header, you can open the find and replace dialog, and you can search for strings, for example, but only for those that are not a key or no delta columns. The setting options for your find and replace dialog is that you can match a case or match an entire field, and you have a toggle to view the occurrence count. And this is available for users with a standard data warehouse modeler role. Another important feature is that a Delta table can now capture deleted records after they have been processed. So when deleting a record in a local Delta table, your value of the change type will now show deleted. Before, this was only inserted and upserted, and now also deleted is added. So your records are, of course, not physically deleted from the database, but it allows you to further transfer that information to a further target. And yeah, the prerequisite here is that you need to have a data warehouse integrator or data warehouse administrator role. So yeah. If you load data, for example, in a remote table, you can now validate your remote tables, meaning that you can check if your remote table has changed in the source system. For example, if a new field was added in the source system, you can now validate your remote table to see what has changed, and then you can also apply it to your remote table in Datasphere. And this brings us to the last topic of today, namely the data preparation. And for data preparation, SAP has introduced repository folders. So these folders you can use to organize your objects in your space. And you can create as many levels as necessary. And these folders can be created in the repository explorer, the business builder, and also the data builder. So as you can see on the example, on the picture, you see that in your sales space, you have a folder for your outputs, your preparation, resources, and sources, for example. Once a folder is created, you can easily move objects or create new objects in it. So this is also very helpful to keep your spaces organized. And then there is an improved source browser in the data builder. Also here, you can better have an overview of which objects are tables, views, or intelligence lookups. And you can also search by your collections, all your objects, recent objects that are shared with me. And you can even mark objects now as your favorite. Another thing is that this feature also supports sorting, filtering. You can drill down into your folders, and you can preview properties and data. As this has been a very extensive set of features and releases, we also made a small summary of the top 5 features, let's say, of these past few months. And that is, of course, that in the replication flow, is that we now have new targets: Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Kafka. So that's a big improvement. It offers flexibility. Then we have the semantic onboarding, as it's now one application where you have everything in a central space to access objects. So also a very good feature. Also the OData API, which offers now a lot of flexibility to read your analytical models, having those input parameters. So also a very good feature here. And then we have the identification of source changes. If we see that in our table in the source system, we have, for example, that new field. And lastly, I also personally like the addition of the repository filters to keep spaces organized, because many people can work in a space. It can create a lot of objects. So this is a really good feature in my opinion. So that was it for today. If you want to stay up to date with all the newest releases with relation to SAP Datasphere, you can go to our release page, and also don't hesitate to follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date with all the Flexo and SAP news. Thank you for watching this video, and we see you next time.